What was the toughest challenge you faced in your career, and how did you overcome it?
Well, the first challenge was I was an English lit major. I got into photography working with newspapers early on. Kind of got in not knowing what I was doing exactly. I started working with a newspaper in Dallas, Texas. And I guess the biggest challenge was learning how to interpret what I saw in front of the camera. When I saw something occurring, I think it's the job of the photographer to translate that visually with their vision. So it's their style to convey what's happening in that world. I think that's one of the biggest challenges for a photographer.
And let's dive into something deeper. Let's start with a simple question, yet profound. Why?
That's a great question. Why? I feel real fortunate that I've gotten to do what I do. I think it's, I think you believe in crossroads in your life or whatever, but I lucked into getting into a field that I've turned out that has become something I've loved hugely. I think what we do is incredibly important. Photographs are incredibly important because we are visual creatures. We see and think and recall and process in still images. If I mention your first birthday, your first pet, 9/11, London, Grand Canyon, the Vietnam War, you could go on and on. When I mention those terms, a still image comes to mind, whether you call upon it or not. That's the beauty of still photography, is it's foundationally built around, your memory is built around still photography, about recalling those images. Like I said, you don't call upon them. This is the strength of it over video. I love video, I love film, but the strength of still photography is its intimacy. It's absolutely, it's personal. We watch TV, we watch movies, but we look at photographs. You pick up a photograph in a National Geographic or on your own print, or even look at it on a screen on the computer, you engage with it, you study it. A still photograph is that moment frozen forever so we can go back and recall it and relive it. And this is why I love still photography, and that's why I still love getting to do what I do. It's a challenge. I've always tried to take the approach that every situation, whatever you're photographing, has its best image. Working with the newspapers, you were kind of a generalist. You had to go into so many different situations, and I always felt that your job was to produce the best picture possible for that moment. This is the thing I love about still photography too, is it's never the same in front of the camera. It's a dynamic that changes forever. So every photograph, I think, is a new event. It's a new moment. It's a new image. It's a new opportunity for the photographer to watch it, to bring it to moment, to understand when the moment's passed, and then present that image as, here's a photograph.
And what is the biggest lesson you've learned in your career?
I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned in this career is that every experience you go through, if you glean something from it, it's an education. So what I love about still photography in this world in which I am is it's been this ongoing education. It's like I've said a minute ago, everything is so different what you're photographing. And if you open mind, if you learn a little bit from each thing, if you study it, like we're doing this geographic story, about 70% of your contract is research. So you're in the field understanding as much as you possibly can about that. So the educational input from this business, in which I've had the benefit of being involved in for over 50 years now, has been one of the greatest benefit of it. I love it. Just this ongoing experience, what you get exposed to, the differences in it. It's just been an amazing education to me.
Great answer. And I think we have something in common if my research is correct. I think we have both experienced a sinking boat on the Amazon in the middle of the night. So
Boy, we do. Yeah.
So I would like to know what was like for you, and how did it influence your photography or your perspective of adventure or the safety of traveling, because my experience changed many things, but I would like to hear yours.
Yeah, I was on an assignment for a magazine. We were on the Amazon doing a story on a herpetologist. we were on this boat that shouldn't have been on the Amazon. It shouldn't have been on any river. It was almost sinking. The river was a very high stage. We went up a tributary, parked for the night by a small Indian village there, and asked if we could stay in their ceremonial hut. They let us. It was myself and I was photographing this herpetologist and some other people. So we were in the tent. We heard this uproar coming from down by the river in the middle of the night. Went running down there. Our boat, which was parked on the outside curve of this tributary, where the river was really roaring down there. The water had flipped the thing over, and all of our equipment and most of my equipment was on all still. There were still some people on board. I jumped on it. We were kicking windows open to grab people out. We had drums of gasoline that were open and pouring all over the place. Some of the locals came running down with open torches. It was rather a tense moment. Most of my equipment was ruined. I had to get back to Iquitos, call the magazine. They had to ship more equipment down to me. But it's one of the, these speed bumps, and I'm sure yours was probably beyond that, but these speed bumps that occur are part of the experience education that this business provides you. I think one of the biggest things that came out of it is sometimes these experiences happen that come out of left field that you're not ready for, that you had no idea. And your need, your understanding, your ability to adapt, adjust accordingly, and continue, deal with what's happening and move forward and learn from it.
Very briefly, my story is similar. I was actually sailing with Fernando Trujillo, the guy that was named Explorer of the Year, Nat Geo Rolex this year.
Right.
And we had a similar experience, and mine was a little more edgy because the month before, all my equipment had been robbed in Panama. It was stolen. So everything that was carrying on that vessel, it was brand new. What is the essence of finding good stories, and how can someone get better at it?
I think that essence is to find something that's in which you're interested. A friend of mine said, if you want to take better pictures, put yourself in front of more interesting situations. The thing is one, to photograph something of which you have interest. I think it's a great deal. Research it as best you can for the magazines. Make sure that your idea is applicable to who their audience is, therefore understand who their audience is. So it's directly it applies to them. The research is one of the biggest things, is understanding what you're doing. Again, like I said, on a geographic story, man, you're responsible for it. And that's one thing photographers love, working with them for that reason. Yeah, I do a lot of work with expeditions today, and even today, I know you do too. And it's still, to me, I approach with the idea of almost like an assignment. Okay, where am I going? What am I doing? Okay, I'm going to the Antarctic. I'm going to Svalbard. I'm going to the Northwest Passage. So I try to learn as much as I can about that. So when I
Jay, sorry that I interrupt, but I would like to know a little bit more about this. How is that process? So, like yourself, I go to Antarctica. I go wherever we go. So I have my own little dynamics that I follow. But I would like to know yours. How do you prepare? What do you read? Do you research online? Do you have a notebook that you take notes? How do you plan this whole research process?
All the above. You just said it, but that's really it. Is I try to, I've got an assignment to Antarctica. So I'll read the books about Shackleton, about the different explorers, about the history of the place, about research going on today. The internet's a great source of information. You don't have to worry about the Dewey Decimal System on that to get the information, but it really is just reading as much as I can. To me, maps are a great friend. I love physical maps too, because I'll get a map on the area and start looking at it. And to me, it's part of the exploration that the photographer experiences in that educational process, is looking at that, understanding where you're going, so you're not entirely surprised by what's happening. So you have a foundational understanding of what's in front of you. But again, like I said a minute ago, you've also got to be ready for always that thing coming out of left field.
Many times in the field, as we know, unexpected issues, they often arise, right? So can you share a time, an assignment, or a location when things didn't go as you planned, and how did you handle them?
You have every intention of going the right way. This is what you have set up. That's what you have planned, and then it doesn't occur. And it's a huge setback. So what do? Well, fall back to plan B or plan C or plan D. So your research has given you that information that so you can understand, okay, this one didn't happen. What's the next layer of information that maybe I should approach it on to photograph it from? So it's that idea of being ready, understanding what's going on so that you can move on to plan B.
And if we look at your career, you said it's almost 50 years now, taking amazing photographs. What single photograph, and I know this is a difficult question to answer, which photograph do you think encapsulate your greatest achievement or challenge, and what is the story behind that particular photo?
Well, it's interesting. Like I could start to say, well, this image, and then I start thinking of this other image. And it's like, well, are you speaking of from this perspective or from the idea of a story or a single image? As I have so many different photographs that I think are powerful and that stand the test of time. I think that's one of the biggest criteria, most important criteria for a photograph is can you look at it a year from now, 2 years from now, and it still has strength. I have a number of photographs I still love that I look back on. I look at some of the work from early days, won the Pulitzer. I think there were some powerful photographs from that made a difference because I think the job of a photojournalist is to bring a situation into the mental grasp of the audience so they get a feeling for what the place looks like, smells like, feels like. Some of the Pulitzer stuff I think was important because a lot of these viewers were never going to see what this war was like firsthand. So this was the ability to take them into that world. Again, that frozen moment is so powerful for the viewers. You think as other famous photographs from history, how impactful, how they have changed the course of history from some of the photographs from Vietnam and all that these incredible photographers took. But I look back, I've got my own favorite collection of pictures that to me, they kind of keep standing the test of time. But it's really interesting, too, to see the maturation that your work goes through. So I look back at my newspaper days stuff, and there's really good stuff. I love it still. Some of oh my gosh, the crazy Will Nelson picnics with the guy running, leaping through the air in the mud. It's a frozen moment that I love about still photography. It makes it so personal to photographs from, oh my gosh, like I said, the old black and white newspaper days stuff where you're trying to create a photograph because newspaper work, the beauty of it, again, like I said a minute ago, was that it was the diversity of it. Okay, I'm going to photograph a Dallas Cowboys football game. That's when I worked in Dallas. And it was really interesting because the editors, as soon as you came back, they were looking for one moment from that game. You have every intention of going the right way. This is what you have set up. That's what you have planned, and then it doesn't occur. And it's a huge setback. So what do? Well, fall back to plan B or plan C or plan D. So your research has given you that information so you can understand, okay, this one didn't happen. What's the next layer of information that maybe I should approach it on to photograph it from? So it's that idea of being ready, understanding what's going on so that you can move on to plan B.
And if we look at your career, you said it's almost 50 years now,